think it's time to get started. Thank you all so much for joining us on this wonderful Wednesday evening. All across New South Wales, we had people RSVP for this event, and we have 36 people on the line right now, which is just fantastic. I'm going to start by handing over to Ed to kick us off tonight with an acknowledgement of country, and then we'll come back and the Nature Conservation Council staff with you will introduce themselves, including myself. So Ed, yeah, do you want to start off tonight?
Definitely. Thank you very much, Shirley. Hey everyone, thanks for calling in. Got a great turnout. And so to kick tonight off, we'd like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting on stolen lands and that all across this continent that sovereignty has never been ceded. Elders of every place that we're calling from tonight, past, present and emerging. I'd like everyone to take a moment to think about who the custodians are of the land on which you're currently calling from, and where you live, where you work, and where you play. And I believe it's essential that in the fight to protect these incredible forests, we acknowledge not only the connection that Indigenous communities have to these places, but also the custodianship, protection, and management that have allowed these irreplaceable places to thrive. Thank you very much. Over to you, Shirley.
Great. Thanks so much, Ed. That was a beautiful acknowledgement. And a lot of us tonight from the Nature Conservation Council are on Gadigal country in the Eora Nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name is Shirley. I'm the nature campaigner here at the Nature Conservation Council and have the great pleasure on working on this campaign to save our old growth forests. And tonight we also have Ed, who you just heard from, Chris Gambian, our CEO. We also have Brad and Ange. So I'm going to hand back to Ed if you just want to say a little bit about what you do and say hello to everybody, Ed.
Hey everyone. I'm based up in Lismore on Widjabul-Wyable land of the Bundjalung Nation. I'm a community organiser, very involved in this old growth forest campaign, and later on tonight I'm going to give everyone an overview over what's happened so far and what's going to happen next. And so yeah, based in Lismore and yeah, very involved with this. Thanks for calling.
Great, thanks so much, Ed, and I'll hand over to Brad Smith.
Hi everyone. Sorry, just had to start my video there. Hi everyone. My name's Brad. I'm the campaigns director here at the Nature Conservation Council. So I've been working on climate and stopping deforestation for a while here now. That's me.
Thanks, Brad. That was great. And Ange, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Hello everyone. I'm Ange. I'm a digital campaigner at Nature Conservation Council, and I'm excited to be here with y'all.
Awesome, thank you, Ange. And we have Chris Gambian on the phone too. Chris, g'day.
Thank you so much, Shirley, and thanks again to everybody for joining us tonight. It's incredibly heartening to see that there's so many people who are keen to give up a bit of time so that we can just be more effective in some of our political engagement work. Just a little bit about me and my background. I've been active in social justice movements for over 20 years now, 25 years really, mainly through the trade union movement. I was a candidate in the last federal election and the one before that, and obviously didn't win. But in the process, I've learned a lot about how the political world works and the sorts of things that MPs care about and the sort of things that perhaps motivate them when they go to make decisions and decide what they care about. The importance, I think, of the stuff that we're talking about tonight is that I think more than we realise, MPs are responsive to what they hear from people in their own constituencies. I know that politics and the public discussion can feel incredibly frustrating. I certainly get frustrated by it. But time and time again, we see evidence that MPs are really sensitive to kind of what's on the mind of what they would sort of see as real people, as opposed to sort of the noise that you might see in the media or even the kind of lobbying of organised groups like NCC or, you know, the plethora of other groups that might seek to influence government decisions. when they see real people wanting to talk to them about stuff that they care about, in my experience, they do want to sit up and pay attention. But sometimes some communication is just more effective than others. And you would know from your own life experience that every time you meet a new person, you make a judgment call about the kind of person that is and the kind of relationship you want to have with that person. And politicians are really no different. So how you talk to them, how you position the things that you want to say makes a really big difference. And Shirley and Ed will go through a lot of that stuff tonight. A couple of tips, I guess, from my perspective. I wrote down last night my sort of top 6 things that I reckon people should always remember when you're talking to an MP, and I thought I would go through my my top 6. And Shirley's not frowning because I've used up too much time yet, so that's a good sign. The first one I would say is talk to an MP the same way you'd expect to be spoken to. Sometimes, and in my experience, people can be so angry about an issue or angry about the position that a politician or a party has taken on an issue that they, they tend to use the opportunity of meeting with the MP as an opportunity to vent their spleen on that issue. But you'd also know from your own life that that is not a way to build a relationship. And what you're really trying to do is build an effective relationship where that politician is going to take up the mantle on your issue. So talk to them like you'd like to be spoken to. They're not robots. They're not punching bags. They laugh at jokes. They're just normal people who've decided to get into politics. And just remembering that, I think, is really crucial. It's really important not to make assumptions about what is going to motivate them. I remember when I was a candidate, lots of people coming up to me and saying, well, if you do this, it's going to be a real vote winner for you. And, sometimes that was a little bit offensive because it's really kind of reduces that person's motivations down to what you think is a really sort of basic transactional kind of relationship. And for most people, that's not what it is. There's easier ways to win votes, frankly, and there's easier ways to make money than being in politics. So kind of thinking that you can do them some sort of deal about votes or anything like that can oftentimes have the reverse effect. Try to be really clear about what you're trying to say. And the little sort of framework I like to use is, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do? And being really clear about that in just one sentence on each of those really makes a big difference in terms of what you then choose to say to those people. MPs get tons and tons and tons of mail. Even just as a candidate, I was getting well over 100 emails a day. And I know that most sitting MPs would get at least that and probably more. So making sure that you're writing something that's really easy to digest, that's not 100 pages of thoughtful kind of notes and reflections, but just is clear and makes the key points, that doesn't come across like a rant, but actually just sort of makes the argument, I think really makes a big difference. Even down to things like the formatting of the document that you send through, if you're sending through a document. If you have a full typed A4 page that doesn't have any paragraphs, doesn't have any spacing, doesn't have proper sentences and just sort of runs on as a stream of consciousness, and MPs get those all the time, then that signals that you're maybe somebody not to pay too much attention to. The person who writes just a clear, easy to read letter is just going to have an easier time cutting through. Likewise, the more you can illustrate the point that you're making with a story, with some sort of real example, either of a person that's affected, or why this sort of speaks to some deeply held values that you've got, and probably that MP also has, that tends to be much more compelling and something that a person might feel like they want to take some action on. And my number 6 tip is one that I think most people don't realise, which is that MPs love constituents. They spend a lot of time with journalists, and they spend a lot of time with their colleagues, and a lot of people sort of inside baseball or inside sort of the inner circle of politics. And that can be a pretty horrible place sometimes. but real people from their community who want to do good things for the world, even if they disagree with you a little bit. They really love those people. And if you're easy to work with, I think they'll be really desperate to work with you. So that's my top 6 tips, Shirley. And thanks everybody again on behalf of everyone at NCC for coming along tonight.
Thanks so much, Chris. I think that's a great framework for us to start this evening, thinking about engaging with our MPs as people. And as Chris said, he was a candidate. And so thinking about Chris here at the Nature Conservation Council, we know that MPs are just people, and that's a really important thing to keep in mind. So yeah, thanks Chris for bringing us together. I'm going to share my screen now, and that way you should all be able to see our presentation slides come up. Again, sorry if you're on the phone and you can't unfortunately see the slides, but we will send them round to you. And just a reminder again, if you could make sure that you're on mute, and that way the audio will be really clear. So tonight we're going to talk to you about the Old Growth Forest campaign. Ed's going to give us an overview, and then he's going to hand back to me, and I'm going to run through why we should meet with our MPs and why it should be you, the 4 simple steps to engaging with your MP, and also some resources and next steps. So without further ado, over to you, Ed. You're on mute at the moment, mate.
There we go. Thank you very much, Shirley. And yeah, so I'm just going to do a quick 5-minute overview of the campaign, what's happened so far, and a little bit about what's next. And so if we could jump to the next slide.
Yep, absolutely, can do.
There, I've got a short little timeline of the campaign. And so it all started in November 2018 when the New South Wales Premier ordered an investigation to see how much more timber could be made available through a remapping and rezoning old growth forest process to open them up for logging. And so when that happened, there was a Natural Resources Commission pilot study, which actually found that 88% of the protected old growth forests that they're remapping would have their protections removed. And so we're talking big numbers here. And so this is about 15,000 hectares that is currently on the chopping block of protected forests. And it's going to cost about $3 million to do this remapping. And that's money that could be spent finishing the transition away from logging native forests and towards timber sourced from plantations. And that's the message we really want to drive home to our members of parliament, is that these areas are protected, they need to stay protected. Any money should be spent towards transitioning to plantations to get the saw logs from from forests that we've planted, not the native forests that we rely on for so many reasons, including carbon stores and biodiversity, sacred sites, etc. And it's clear that this old growth rezoning process is designed to increase the timber supply to big logging companies. It's not actually about public interest. It's not about ecological values. And it would really compromise the adequacy of the Car Reserve system. It would damage old growth trees. It would affect these species and ecosystems and reduce carbon stores, like I said. So even the Office of the Environment and Heritage has recommended against this process and provided advice to the government saying that these forests are, and I quote, important for their habitat value and are crucial components of the reserve system as originally identified, as harvesting creates younger forests elsewhere in the state forest estate. And they went on to say that the protection of these forests is critical because of the remapping and rezoning process that's happening on private land as we speak. And so it's very clear that if we don't stop this process, tens of thousands of hectares of forests could lose protection. And we don't have enough protected forests as it is. We really shouldn't be removing protections from any areas that are off limit, especially these ones where they've been protected for decades. And so to jump into the timeline, in July this year, we launched our online petition calling for the rezoning process to be immediately halted. And we were blown away by the response, allowing us to get 18,000 signatures by the next month when we met with Environment Minister Matt Keane. Since then, we've got over 20,000 signatures in the online petition. And so since then, hundreds of you have been helping with our paper petition, which according to New South Wales government laws, if you get 10,000 petition signatures in paper, then you force a debate. And so that's the goal that we're going for the paper petitions. And they're harder to get than online petitions because it actually requires someone writing down their address and also a signature. And so getting online interest to get 20,000 signatures was great. And we're going to turn that into some real life conversations at market stalls, at events, at your schools, your workplaces, etc., to get to the 10,000. And so we're currently in the process of counting these petition signatures in the Sydney office. And we know that we've already received thousands of signatures. And so we'll have a number on how many we're up to and whether we'll be able to get it done by the end of the year. Otherwise, we'll force the debate early next year. But what a really important part of that process is all of the conversations. And so if we have 10,000 conversations about the importance of these forests and why we need to protect them, then we will be really putting the heat on our politicians and inspire other people like us to meet with their members and have that flow-on effect. And so just last month, at the start of September, the Natural Resources Commission announced that the rezoning process has been temporarily placed on hold to allow further modelling by Forestry Corporation New South Wales of the hardwood supply. And so that means that they're halting the process, they're feeling the heat, and they're going to look back at their numbers to make sure, or to sort of have a look about whether we can call off the process now as it is, or whether they want to keep going on with it. And so our opinion, and I'm sure it's shared all across this phone call, is that regardless of whether there's been a shortfall or whether the timber supplies have been affected for these big logging companies, what we need more protections. And as an important part of that is not removing protections of areas currently protected. And we know that these forests are just too precious to plunder. And so, yeah, they've been protected for decades. They make up the highest conservation values across the state. And we're going to cause a big heat about it. We're going to meet with our members of parliament, and you're all here to hear about that. And we've got a section at the end of the webinar for questions. And so I'd like either you could jot them down if you have any questions, jot them down for yourself, or put them in the chat and I'll be able to record them so that when we get to the very end of this, we'll be able to answer some questions. And so they're the campaign overview, and I'm passing back over to Shirley, who's going to take us on to the next step.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ed. That was great to hear. I really love this campaign, and it's been great working with all of you for the steps that we've taken so far. I'm sure many of you signed that petition to Matt Keane, and many of you online tonight have also been collecting petitions. So thank you so much for being part of it already. I really want to make this next section as interactive as possible. It's a bit funny being online. It's a bit more challenging than if we were all in a room together. So we're going to use the chat box as much as we can. Hopefully we've all figured out how to use that so far. It's at the bottom of your screen in the options. Even with the share screen, you should be able to bring that up by waving your mouse around and hitting chat. So we're going to jump straight into that chat box, and I want to ask you, why do you think that meeting with your MP is powerful, specifically meeting with them? So if I could get some people to type some comments into the chat box for me. Otherwise, I'll jump straight in. Maybe they'll come through. So for me, this is really powerful because the fate of our growth forests sits in the hands of our politicians. And we really need this issue to be on the political agenda. So right now there's only a small handful of politicians who know about the proposal to open up old growth forests to logging, and we need every politician to know that old growth forests are at risk and that their community wants to see action to save these forests. So most of you have an MP from one of the three major parties. I'll bring them up on the screen now. That's the Greens Party, the Labour Party, or the Liberals Nationals Party. And there's really a lot that all of the MPs from these major parties can do. For the Greens, there's a lot more they could be doing on the issue to put this on the radar of other parties. So if you have a Greens MP, meeting with them will make sure it's high on their agenda to do something. And the Labour Party, they're still on the fence. We don't know really where they sit on saving old growth forests. So if you have a Labour representative, you have an important role to meet with them and make sure that they feel that cutting down old growth forests is an environmental tragedy that really can't go ahead. And with the Liberal Party, we really have a unique opportunity with Environmental Minister Matt Keane. He wants to bring back the environmental legacy of his party, which used to actually be really strong, surprisingly. So for those of you with a Liberal MP, this is a unique chance to engage with them on an issue that they could really get on board with. Thanks so much for the comments that are coming through. It's really great to see. You're all talking about raising awareness, really getting the information to your MPs, and some of you feel that your MPs are open to listening to this issue. So that is fantastic to see. Thanks for taking part in it. So the National Party, this proposal to open old growth forests has come from the Deputy Premier and leader of the National Party, John Barilaro. And that's why we really need the National Party's members to hear from their constituents, to hear from you if you have a NATS MP, that we want to see these ancient forests saved. And if your MP is not in a major party, in one of these three major parties, they still have a really important role to play because every MP has a direct voice in Parliament and to other MPs. So regardless of which party your MP is from, we need all MPs to know and care about this issue. And your voice really is key. Chris already touched on this, but I want to talk a little bit more about why your voice is powerful. As a member of their community, as a member of your MP's community, they care so much more about meeting with you than they do with somebody like me, for example. I'm not a constituent, I'm just from an NGO. They don't really want to talk to me, but they do care about the people in their community. A part of it is voting, but as Chris said, it's mainly because you're part of their community. And electorate support or pressure gives MPs a reason to care about certain issues, and then they can take the issues that they're hearing from their communities to their parties and to decision makers in Parliament. And the other thing is that there's 36 of us online tonight, so we can hold meetings across New South Wales, and that means that we're having a collective impact of all MPs hearing the same message at the same time. So we know that there are many ways to engage with your MP. We can petition them, a lot of you have done that, we can email them, we can phone call them, we can drop in at their electorate office, we can talk to them at local events and markets. Some of you talked about meeting your MP at the state election, and we can host events. There's so many ways, but one of the key ways to engage with your MP is to meet with them. In my experience as a campaigner and as a community organizer, meeting with MPs face-to-face is so powerful. So we're going to have a go with the chat box again. If you could please answer this question in the chat box. Why do you think that meeting with your MP is powerful? I'm going to give it a little bit of time, so I can give you a moment to type. There's some really great comments from the last question as well, and people talking about meeting face to face, which is great. That's a key thing for me. I think that when we connect face to face with somebody, we can really get a message across strongly. We can share our concerns and our passions, and we can ask specific questions to our MP. Does anybody have anything that they want to share? Just type away. Eye contact is powerful, completely agree. And yeah, it's okay if you've never tried before, you've never contacted them. That's, yeah, that's totally fine too. We can think about reasons why it might be powerful even if we haven't been with them in a meeting before. Yes, fantastic. If they don't hear from us, they only hear from people who want to increase logging. Brad, who shared that, thanks Brad. But yeah, it's very, very true. We are concerned about this issue from this side, and there's many different voices of concern. Faith has shared they are the life and awareness to the issue. They bring the life and awareness to the issue and have a connection, resources and funds to follow up on the issue. It's very true. We're a democracy and we deserve to have our opinions and needs heard. So I completely agree. Again, we've got these ideas about meeting face to face and bringing issues to our MP, and that we need to hear from lots of different voices. Yes, and that they can see the concern and passion on your face. Thanks so much for putting your comments in the chat box. I completely agree with all of what you have put in there. Thanks, everyone. So the next thing I want to cover is that we have 4 really simple steps to meeting with your MP. 1 is to get in contact with them. 2 is to prepare for a meeting. 3 is to have that meeting. And 4 is to follow up and keep in contact. So I'm quickly going to go through these 4 easy steps for you. So step 1 is to get in contact. This is really straightforward. It's emailing them and then following up with a phone call. And we have a plan to help you take this first step. We're going to get in contact with your MP to have a meeting for you. So for all of you online tonight, that first step, it's covered. And step 2 is to prepare for your meeting. And again, all of the resources and materials that you need are prepared for you and available. One example, if you can still see me on the screen, is our Saving Old Growth Forest leaflet. It's got all the information that you need in it, and you can take this to your MP, as well as photos of these amazing trees that are at risk of being logged by this proposal. And we also will hopefully connect you with people from your electorate. Maybe they're even on the phone tonight. So that's a really good way to get prepared, so that hopefully you can go as a group. If you are meeting as a group, one thing to do to prepare for your meeting is to think about how you're going to run through the meeting together and assign some roles. So that could be as simple as having one person to lead the meeting, coordinating, a note taker, and a timekeeper. And the next step, the most exciting step, step 3, is to have your meeting with your MP. And we've all had meetings in our life, but it's always good to remind ourselves of the best practice. So again, we're going to jump into the chat box. I want you to think about a time that you've had a conversation with somebody to convince them of somebody. That could have been your MP. Maybe some of you have met with your MP before to convince them on an issue. But it could also be maybe your partner or your boss at work or your kids. Sometimes we have to try and convince our kids to do something. So think back to that conversation. And what I want you to answer is, what makes a good meeting? So if you could put that into the chat box, what are some of the elements that make a really good meeting, especially when you're trying to convince somebody of something? And while that's coming through, I've just had somebody write, give your MPs the link to the video of Nature Conservation Council ecologist Mark Graham. Yeah, that's a fantastic video, and I hope you've all seen it, and a good idea to send that to your MP. We can email that to our MPs so they can see the very forests that we're talking about that are at risk of being logged. So fantastic. Claude has said preparation and rehearsal. I completely agree. Christy, thank you, has said a clear ask. Absolutely. What do we want from our MPs? And we're going to get into that very soon. Being respectful and listening to their side as well. I completely agree. And some of us, as was shared in my group, are meeting with conservative MPs. And it's really important that even if we feel that they're coming from a completely different place from us, that we are respectful and we listen to them and we meet them where they're at, because that conversation still holds power. Again, some other people talking about courtesy and being clear and polite and using positive language. Respect, people are agreeing with that, absolutely. Yeah, this is great. People talking about local media. Yeah, getting your media involved. I've heard of some people meeting with their MP and then contacting the local media with the photo of that meeting, and it's been in the local paper. So other people in your community can then know that you've had that meeting. Fantastic. Thank you all so much. That's exactly some of the points that I wanted to cover tonight. So thank you for contributing. I really love tea. I love to drink tea, and I also love this tea formula. So the tea formula is 3 simple things to remember. The first letter T is touch, and that's not physical touch, but it's about touching your MP on a level that they can understand. And making the meeting personal. And Chris talked about this before. I really think that when we make something personal and we think about, why are we here? Why does this issue matter to us? It comes across genuine, and it will be a lot easier for you to talk about the issue. So whether you're concerned about koalas or climate change, bring that personal element to the meeting with your MP. The E is for engage, and this is about engaging on the solution. The solution for us here is for our MPs to take action and save these old growth forests to keep them protected. We don't need to open these old growth forests to logging, and we absolutely shouldn't do it. As Ed mentioned, we can transition to plantations. 90% of sawn timber in New South Wales comes from plantations already, and so we're almost there, and we just need to keep on that trajectory and not be opening up protected areas. And the E, that was the E. The A is action, which Christy mentioned, being clear on what we're asking our MPs to do. And that's the next bit that I want to cover. So I'm just going to step back for a moment. What are we calling on the New South Wales government to do? We have two very key asks for the New South Wales government. One is to ensure that no areas of forest currently protected will be opened up to logging, and to end the remapping and rezoning of old growth forest process that has been underway and is currently on pause, but just to stop it altogether. And so what we want is for our MPs to take action by writing to Environment Minister Matt Keane and to the Premier Gladys Berejiklian to deliver this message and ask them to take action on these two key points. They are a direct message and voice to these members of Parliament and can have a huge impact. So your MP getting in contact with the Premier and with the Environment Minister is just absolutely key to winning this campaign. But there are also a number of other ways that your MP can take action. And we have this handy meeting summary tool. So when you have your meeting with your MP, you can go through this with them and make sure that they are committing to as many types of action as possible. These can be things such as making a speech in Parliament, which really helps to put this issue on the political agenda, or it could be things like raising awareness on their own social media channels, for example. And the other thing that's in here is that your MP agrees to take a photo with you. I mentioned that some people have got their photos into news outlets and also on social media. So here's a photo of a few of us meeting with Minister Matt Keane, the Environment Minister. We took your petition signatures to him, and it was because of these petitions that he met with us. So your voice was powerful in this moment as well. And on the right, you'll see this great big tree. This is one of the trees at risk of being logged. And it says, "Keep protected forest protected." We're going to give you these posters so you can hold them up with your MP in the photo, and then everybody that sees that photo will know exactly why you were meeting with your MP. And that way, the meeting that you're having will have impact well beyond the meeting itself, but we'll be able to share the message that this meeting was had and that people are speaking up about this issue and talking to their MPs with it. So that's a great way to take action and keep your MP to account. The final step, step 4, is to follow up and to keep in contact. So this sounds pretty easy, but I'll just run through it. You need to make sure that you're thanking your MP for their time. As Chris mentioned, they're really busy, but they do care and they do want to meet with you. It's also a great opportunity to remind them that they committed to taking action and letting them know what it was that they said that they were going to do for you. And also to follow up on any outstanding actions. They might ask you a question that you don't know the answer to, and that's absolutely fine. You're not an expert, and that's no problem. So you can say, "I'll get back to you on that," and let us know, and we'll help put that information together for you. And you might ask them a question and they might not know the answer. So again, following up and asking them, "Hey, you said you were going to talk to the Environment Minister about this. What did they say?" And the follow-up also involves talking to us. We would love to know how your meeting went, that you had your meeting. We regularly go as a team to Parliament. We meet with MPs, and it's going to be so helpful when we're having those conversations to let them know that 10 people had meetings this week with their MPs in these electorates, and this issue will really firmly and squarely be on the political agenda because you're sharing back with us the action that you're taking. So the next question that I want to ask you into the chat box is, what do you think are some of the barriers to your MP taking action to save old growth forests? So if people could type into the chat box, and I'll read some of those out, because yeah, it might not be easy, but it's very important to do, and it's good to think about the barriers that we might face. Give you all a moment. So Faith has said, "People disagreeing with the causes. My area is very conservative." Absolutely, that's a good point. Yep, right-winged MPs. Yes, yeah, contracts is a good point. But luckily, we're at a phase in the campaign where we still have time to stop this because the process hasn't started yet. Yeah, definitely. Political parties have ties to industry for sure. Powerful lobbies. Yep, absolutely. There's the other side to this are the voices calling for the old growth forest to be cut down. Yeah, and the ties within the political parties. So the fact that if one member of a political party doesn't want this to go ahead, they might be telling their colleagues to stand with them instead of meeting them on their own values and opinions. Yeah, absolutely. These are all really good barriers and good things to think about. But I think the number one barrier, the absolute biggest barrier to your MP taking action on this issue is that they don't know. They don't know that these trees are at risk of being chopped down. So few MPs know that this is an issue. We've met with MPs from all parties and they haven't heard about it. The government has been incredibly secretive about it. And that's why it is so important that you have a meeting with your MP. You might be the first person to tell them about this very real risk to trees and forests that are hundreds, 400, 500 years old. And one thing that I've learned from this is that it is just a meeting, it's face to face, and it's often such a powerful message that they're hearing for the first time. And this is true even if your MP says no to taking action on forests, because we're part of a bigger movement. We're having dozens of meetings and they won't all say yes. But what we will get out of this is a few MPs who champion this issue and encourage other MPs to do the same thing. And even for those of them who don't promise you anything, we still need them to know about this issue. And through you meeting with them, they'll know about it and they'll know that their community cares, have taken the time to come and meet with them and give them this information. And remember that you don't need to be an expert. All you need to be is a voice of concern. Your role is simply to raise this issue with your MP. I have really found that putting a picture in front of an MP to show them what we're talking about is so powerful, and it brings the message home that we cannot let this process go ahead. We need to save these magnificent forests and these ancient trees. So we have all the resources you need. We have an action toolkit that goes through everything that I've talked about. We've got printout posters. We've got printouts for the photos so that you can put that photo in front of your MP and tell them exactly what it is that you're talking about. We'll have these webinar slides, a link to the recording, and also we have our leaflet. It's available online and we can post it to you once you've got your meeting booked in. We can put it in the mail. So back to the chat box one last time. I want to know who's ready to meet with their MP. There are 36 of us on the line tonight, which is amazing. And it would be so powerful if we can get in front of our MPs to talk to them about saving old growth forests. Ed and I are committed to sending the meeting requests, making the phone calls, sorting out the times and dates with all of you, helping you connect in your electorates, and helping you get into that room. So if you are committed to meeting with your MP, please can you type yes into the chat box. Fantastic. I love it. Before I even finished talking, there were lots of yeses coming through. It's really great. Thank you all. We are going to keep a record of these yeses, and I'm very excited. Tomorrow, we are going to send meeting requests to your MP, and then we'll work out the logistics from there. So keep them coming, keep typing in the yeses. As you're typing it in, I've got one final ask to wrap us up tonight. If you can, if you're in a position to, please consider making a donation to support our campaign. I'm going to ask Brad to grab the donation link and put it into the chat box. So if you want to go ahead and make that donation now, that would be absolutely fantastic. Your donation is critical to our campaign. Without you, we won't be able to run events like this, create videos like somebody mentioned earlier tonight, or yeah, really run this campaign. You are absolutely critical, and it makes me so proud to think that we are a people-powered movement across New South Wales. Donations, big and small, make this work possible. So thank you very much for that, and thank you all so much for being here with us tonight and for committing. We're gonna wrap up, and I'm gonna hand back to Ed to do that for us. So thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Shirley. Yeah, so we've got to the end, and yeah, just like to say thanks to everyone for calling in and for finding the time to be able to learn more about how to meet with your local member and to really be able to use our collective power to be able to make this a huge issue, put it on the political radar. We've already been able to have them pause the process temporarily, and so they're already feeling the heat about how many people care about this issue, care about these old trees and the protections these forests need. And like at the start of the meeting, a lot of you said the reason why you wanted to meet with your MP or you felt inspired to act was to be part of this well-coordinated, targeted collective action to address the destruction that's happening and the climate change and the logging at a big scale, the land clearing. And so to really be able to act strategically to turn all of these motivations into effective action to get some big wins for these big old trees. That's why we're all here. And yeah, so thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Shirley. Thanks everyone else from NC. Especially thanks for you for calling in and for taking the first step to meeting with your MP. Everyone who's put yes in the box will be contacting you. It's not too late. You can still jump in a yes. And we're gonna wrap this up. But please stay online if you have any questions, because we'll be able to answer questions for about 15, 20 minutes. We'll be able to go through some nitty gritty concerns anyone has if you have any time. But this is the end now. So if you've got somewhere to go or a meal to have, anything like that, feel free to drop off. But if you'd like to stick around, I'm going to run a question and settings. Thanks again for calling in. Thanks for taking the next step to meeting with your MP to blowing up this issue, and we're gonna keep fighting. There's nothing they can do to stop us fighting for these old growth forests.